Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here today, my name is Odds and we are going to be talking about the finale of the Book of Boba Fett. Now, I can't believe it's over. We have our first end of a Star Wars content for the year, but there's lots more to come, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I'm going to go ahead and give you a breakdown of the episode as well as end with some questions and thoughts moving forward through what's next for these characters. If you're new here today, I would love for you to subscribe. I do 2 videos a week, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, vlogs, and beauty on this channel. There's theme park content coming pretty soon, and I just did a theme park content video, a theme park video a few weeks ago that I can link to down below, but be sure to stay tuned for that. If you like this video while you're watching, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. It really helps me out on this channel, and let's go ahead and get started with the breakdown. This episode is titled In the Name of Honor because it seems to be that Mando and Boba Fett are going to die in the name of honor. It is mentioned later in the episode. Mando mentions later in the episode then they will die in the name of honor, as that is the creed of the Mandalorian way. Now, this happens a little bit later in the episode, but they start out with Boba, Fennec, and Mando inspecting the ruins of the sanctuary, and they vote to stay there to wait for reinforcements rather than going to hide in Jabba's palace, or now Boba Fett's palace. They vote to do that so that they can show the people of Mos Espa that they're there to protect them. Cadbade goes to visit the mayor and the Pikes, who he is working for. We find out that the Pikes were in fact the ones who slaughtered Boba Fett's Tusken family, and they kind of negotiate how ugly they want this to get. The mayor has pretty much sold out the city for the spice trade because it is very profitable, but Boba Fett's not going to stand for that. We then go over to Pelimoto and Mos Eisley and see an X-Wing arriving, and we find out that Luke is not with it. It's just piloted by R2, and Grogu is in the cockpit, so Grogu was sent back because he chose the Mandalorian armor, which he is wearing. You can see it underneath his little sack costume, I like to call it, his little sack that he wears. So yeah, we get to see that he's wearing the armor underneath. So she takes him, and she mentions that Grogu is a terrible name. Poor thing. I mean, Yoda's not a great name either. So Cadbade goes to visit Boba Fett, and we think we're going to have a Western showdown like he had with Cobb Vanth, except they decide to do it later on their own terms, and Cadbade mentions that he's going soft, which Boba Fett has been threatened of this entire time. We find out when they're surveying the city that the locals and the families turned on Boba Fett and made a deal and start turning on the soldiers, so they end up killing the Gamorreans. They take out a lot of the mods. They almost overrun Chrysanthemum, but he ends up surviving later on, but he is taken down by Trandoshans, which is terrible because Trandoshans hunt Wookiees. So they're like the big enemies of Chrysanthemum and the Wookiees. The Twi'lek that is with the mayor that they have captured, he's still with them. He goes to negotiate on behalf of Boba Fett, but then they realize that he is not really going to negotiate. He doesn't want anything, and he's not going to take anything less than the Pikes leaving Tatooine. But with this, Boba and Mando launch a surprise attack on the Pikes, and when it looks like they're about to be overrun, the people of Freetown show up Cobb Vanth-less, finding out that Cobb Vanth did not make it, even though he was only shot in the shoulder from what it seemed, that he might have died from infection, but we'll get to that later on. Chrysanthemum then shows up badly wounded, but is still fighting on because Wookiees are these powerful warriors that will not be held down. We then get an introduction of some shielded droids that come to attack, and they really struggle to fight against them because of their shields. Din tries with the Darksaber, it doesn't get through, and none of the blasters will get through. Boba Fett then leaves to go get reinforcements, which we find out later is the Rancor. He rides the Rancor into battle, which we thought was going to happen. We're super exciting. Pelimoto shows up to see Mando and shows him that Grogu is with her, and Grogu immediately jumps into Din's arms, and it's so sweet. And he tries his best to take care of him throughout the way, but Mando, Grogu, Boba Fett, and the Rancor all take down one of the droids, and then we get the showdown between Cadbade and Boba Fett, which we expected. Cadbade gets the best of him for a bit, for most of the fight, and is going to put in the final blow to him when he attacks him with the gaffy stick and ends up killing him. Rancor is then on the loose, and it is Grogu who puts him to sleep, putting an Ezra Bridger there with the animals. And then he falls asleep himself because we know that him using the Force is really tiring for him. I will mention that Rancor has a King Kong moment where he climbs one of the towers of Mos Espa and is just sitting there like, "Whoa." It's a King Kong moment, of course. We then see the leader of the Pikes meeting with the mayor and everybody else that is there. Fennec kills them all off, and we get a pretty badass moment where she comes through the door and ends up exiting. Pretty badass moment, which should lead to a question later on that I have. Boba Fett mentions in passing that maybe this isn't for him, which is interesting because he spent the entire time fighting for it to be daimyo and to protect the people of the city, but now he's deciding that maybe this isn't for him. And Fennec asks, well, if not you, then who? And we're going to get to that later as well. Mando and Grogu fly off to space. They have a cute little moment. He is in the little astromech port that was taken out. So yes, he is in that little port. They'll probably get a bigger ship later on just so that it's more comfortable for the two of them. And then we have a post-credit scene where we have one of the mods starting to work, getting ready to work on Cobb Vanth, who is in the Bacta tank. So Cobb Vanth has survived. He's able to get through the gunshot wound, so he will hopefully be back in either a next season or a next season of The Mandalorian. That is the breakdown. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought there were a lot of key points to this that we had built up to. I think especially with Boba Fett using the gaffy stick, him riding the Rancor into battle, we got Grogu reuniting with Din Djarin. So lots of stuff that we had been hinting at. We still don't have a lot of stuff, like we don't have Mando really being in control of the Darksaber, because I think that's going to be something that is handled in Season 3 of The Mandalorian, which is rumored to be coming out in December of this year. So more Mando, don't worry, we won't have to wait too long for more Mando content. Overall, as a series, I didn't love it. I think it started out really slow. I understand we built up to this moment, but I think a lot of the other stuff was not as necessary. If I'm being quite honest, my favorite parts were the parts, the Mandalorian episode and the last episode with Luke, but I don't think those are necessary for the show The Book of Boba Fett, because it didn't really deal with Boba Fett. I think we could have saved some of that. I understand why we kind of couldn't save that for The Mandalorian Season 3, since Grogu is going to be with Mando starting in Season 3, but it's kind of a rough, interjection of this. So, a little bit rough. This kind of felt like a Mandalorian Season 3. Now, we're getting Mando Season 3, obviously, in December, but this felt like a Mandalorian Season 3 moment. So, some questions for the episode and for the series as a whole. what's next for Boba Fett? Now, he mentioned in passing that he didn't think that the daimyo role was for him. So if he's not going to be the daimyo, who will? Now, I think that this could be a role for Cobb Vanth, especially since he has been marshal. This would be a big promotion for him, especially since the daimyo is not going to be doing a lot of the spice trade. It's not going to be as much of a criminal mastermind anymore. They got rid of the heads of the criminal families. So it's going to be more of an enforcer role. So I think we could see Cobb Vanth join that role instead of Boba Fett. But what would Boba Fett be doing? He could go help Mando. He could be reunite with his Mandalorian ways and become part of the Creed. So we could see that happen. The Creed being not the one, not the crazy religion where Mando doesn't take off his helmet, but more so just part of the Mandalorian customs and ways. Second question is Grogu's Jedi training fully over? Now, Luke did make a choice between joining the Mandalorian or becoming a Jedi and training in the ways of the Force. Now, a lot of people have been theorizing that it was the same choice that Yoda gave to Luke in Empire Strikes Back, and Luke ended up going to help his friends, but ended up coming back and finding his own way in the Force. I think this could be very similar, that Grogu's going to find his own way in the Force and not necessarily need the training of Luke moving forward. So I don't think he'll go back and join Luke at any point, or any point in the near future. But he might find his Jedi training through some other way. He could find Jedi training through Force Ghosts. He could find it through maybe Force Ghost of Yoda would be pretty cool, even though he doesn't know Yoda, but he could recognize him as one of his own species. And we do know that Yoda worked a lot with the little tiny Padawan Jedi. So we could see maybe that. That's just a theory, an idea that popped in my head. So if that doesn't happen, wouldn't be too shocked, but I think it could be a possibility. Now, the last question I have is, will Fennec continue to remain by Boba's side? Now, the last moment where she goes and kills the mayor and the leader of the Pike Syndicate seems to indicate that she is still as ruthless as ever. Now, she is an assassin by trade, and I think she might go back to doing assassin work. She might leave Boba Fett's side to continue to do assassin work, especially since it seems like she didn't agree with all of the aspects of Boba's rule. So I think Boba could leave and go do his own thing, and Fennec could leave and do her own thing as well. I also want to mention for The Mandalorian Season 3, I think a big point of it, other than Din using the Darksaber and trying to learn how to use it, is we're going to see the Mandalorians having to come together and accept themselves as one people. Now, there's a lot of factions of Mandalorians out right now. We have Boba Fett, who is not seen as a Mandalorian by bo-katan and the Night Owls because he is a clone. And we have the Watch, who only views people who don't take off their helmets and follow the Creed 100% as Mandalorians. So then we have Din Djarin, who's somewhere in the middle, but has worked with all of them in the past. I think we're going to need to see somebody unite Mandalore, and everybody's going to have to learn to get along. So coming in Season 3, I think those are going to be the two main elements. I think we could also possibly see Grogu take on a role of both a Mandalorian and a Jedi, like Tar Vizsla. So he could be the one to unite Mandalore. Always possible, you know, he's still a little baby at this point, but I think it's possible that he could be the one to unite Mandalore if it's not Din Djarin himself. That is all I have, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching my Book of Boba Fett breakdowns. I know a lot of people didn't love this show, but thank you for sticking around and staying tuned for this. I appreciate you all. Hope you guys are staying safe, and I love you all, and I will see you on Friday with a new video. Bye!